world-class cultures, world-class organizations only exist and sustain because of learned human behavior. They're focusing on the product. They're focusing on the environment. They're making their stuff look shiny and propped up in the right color palette and font and whatever. You can do all of that you want to, but if you have the wrong people, what difference does it make? Treating people as if they're volunteers, I think, is a great way to establish engagement. Man, I could talk about this and give you another 10 to 15, but just those 4 or 5, I go, they're all important, but what could you do? Yeah. If you just sat back and thought common sense and love on people a little bit more, they'll stick around with you.
You're listening to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
What happens when a leadership company dedicated to helping people tap into unrecognized potential collaborates with the leading cloud-based platform trusted by over 11,000 shops nationwide, a standard-setting level of training designed to help aspiring leaders achieve limitless results? Join Limitless Leadership in a collaborative training event sponsored by TechMetric on Friday, December 5th in Houston, Texas, at TechMetric's office. If you want a team that's aligned, accountable, and fired up to win, this is the training that will transform the way you lead. Limitless Leadership dives into reshaping your mindset, clarifying your vision, and teaching you how to communicate, delegate, and execute at a higher level. You'll learn how to lead with purpose, create daily wins, drive operational excellence through KPIs, and inspire real change without burnout, chaos, or constant firefighting. If you're ready to step out of doer mode and into leader mode, this is where it starts. Just visit limitlessleadership.co/training to learn more. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. Before we get started, as you know, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you need to on social media to help this podcast reach people and build leaders. And in this case, I'm talking about leaders that rock, because we got a fantastic guest for you today. Our guest is a keynote speaker. He's a best-selling author. He's a fellow entrepreneur. Our guest today is my friend, Jim Knight. Jim, thanks for being here, man.
Oh, man. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. I was so excited to finally get a chance to meet you and talk in person and then get invited on the show. It's like icing on the cake, man. So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Right. The feeling is mutual. I had the opportunity to see you speak. You were the closing keynote at the ASTA Expo in Raleigh, North Carolina, roughly 6 weeks ago by the time this recording airs. And dude, you crushed it. We're talking about leadership that rocks. You were an amazing keynote speaker. You captivated the audience, and you delivered some solid principles on leadership that rocks. And you're going to share a few of those with us today. But before we get started, go ahead and share with the audience who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
Yeah, sure, man. I think like most speakers, like you and I, we didn't wake up in the morning when we were teenagers and say, let's go be keynote speakers. Almost everybody sort of fell into it because they were doing some other type of business or job. My background really was starting off music. I have a music degree. I was a vocalist. I thought I was going to be a rock and roll singer. But interesting, Josh, when you go to college, you discover a lot of things. And one of them was to make a living singing, you actually had to be good. And so I changed careers. I became a middle school teacher for 6 years. And, that was okay. I'm going back 35 years now. But I took a summer job working at Hard Rock International. There was a Hard Rock cafe that was in my backyard. I'm in Central Florida, and the Orlando Hard Rock was the biggest, busiest restaurant in the world. So we pumped like 7,000 people a day through that thing. So my skills got really sharp, and I thought hospitality was going to be my calling. But somebody asked me to do a little speaking on the side for their company because they were in town, and I did that, and it was free. And just like every other speaker, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, can you do the same thing for my company? How much do you charge? And that's when the light bulb went off. So, I was with Hard Rock for 21 years. I ran training and development for those guys. I opened up cafes and hotel and casino properties all over the globe. So I got all my international travel out of the way, but I'm still pulling the levers of music, education, and hospitality. I still use all three of those. And you having seen me speak, you can probably tell, man, I almost really needed all three of those stepping stones to do what I'm doing now. But that I call it edutainment. I really do want people to push back from the table and go, that was awesome. That was a great use of my time. But, we tend to get ginned up. I tend to get a little bit passionate, excited when I get on stage. It's a little bit performance art, but I want the funny to be there. But I'm not a motivational speaker. Sometimes that just happens to be the byproduct.
Sure.
And I've been doing it for 13 years now. So knock on wood, I hope this is what I get to do the rest of my life.
All right, folks. As you know, great leadership isn't about doing everything the best. It's actually about having the right partners in your corner to build your shop's success. It's about putting the right team in place. It's about choosing the right vendors to make you a pro, making pro moves. And when I think about the pros, I think about shop marketing pros. The know, like, and trust factor, that's a real thing. And Shop Marketing Pros understands that. That's why I want to recommend Shop Marketing Pros to become your marketing partner in your shop. They get to know, like, and trust you and your business to then help your audience get to know, like, and trust you too, and bring your shop to the next level. So when I talk about making pro moves, this is the kind of move I'm talking about. This is the kind of standard-setting partnership that's going to elevate your shop. So if you're ready to become a pro in your shop, visit shopmarketingpros.com and partner with the best. I like the fact that, you're absolutely right. It is the byproduct. The result is often the byproduct. You're just being yourself. You're being your true, authentic self. I think that we connect through authenticity, humility, and vulnerability. And when you can get on stage and truly connect with the audience to captivate the audience, which you do a phenomenal job of.
Thank you, man.
The byproduct is these guys like myself walked away and we're motivated, like we're inspired. And what I often share as a leadership coach is that motivation is very much like a flame, and flames come and go. So Jim Knight can jump on stage and do his thing and I can get motivated, but it's up to me to take what you shared and apply it so it's not just information.
Yeah.
A lot of what
that means a lot coming from you, because you were also quite humble. What you're not telling everybody is you were the opening keynote in the morning, and this is what you also get a chance to do. And you talked about that, and I know your whole world is authenticity. So, dude, coming from a fellow speaker who gets it, sees it, and you personally maybe were inspired or motivated, man, that's my whole jam. So thank you for saying that.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot to me. And and I'm not just saying that. Like your keynote truly inspired me and motivated me, and that's what I want to see. I mean, ultimately, like, we are committed to being lifelong learners, and so we're all about getting educated so that we can take the knowledge gained, apply it, so it's not just information. Some of the principles that you shared during that keynote were, I want to say you delivered about 8 principles that are leadership principles that rock. And what I'm going to ask you to do today is just share a couple, share your top 2 or 3 from that particular keynote, and share those principles and how we can apply them in our everyday life.
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that particular keynote, because one of the things about my process is I customize everything. So, like all speakers, if we're doing our job right, we talk to the client ahead of time. So I talked to the guys at ASTA and said, what are your challenges? What are your issues? How much time do I have? Because I know if I had an hour keynote on a stage, I can probably get to 7 or 8 really good takeaways. If I have more time, they're going to get more larger story arcs, more music, more videos, all that. In that particular case, I did 8. And I can tell you, particularly around my leadership stuff, I'm always going to talk about 2 or 3 that will probably be in every session. One of those, and I think I maybe even kicked off the session, was about world-class cultures, world-class organizations only exist and sustain because of learned human behavior. So I'm a big believer that everything is learned behavior. You learn everything, right? From your parents and school and the playground and your friends and religion or lack of religion. By the time somebody comes to me and they're an 18, 19-year-old kid wanting a job, they are the way they are. And they got it from all this learned behavior. So in my world, if your natural disposition isn't to smile or have a personality or make eye contact or want to be around other humans, that's a problem for me. It's probably not going to work out. And I can see that almost a mile away. Maybe I've got a position for them somewhere in the job where they'll never have to interact with other people, which is highly unlikely. I need people to act and behave a certain way. So part of my message in that audience was, man, everybody in here has to be a human resource expert. You got to put on your HR hat and you really got to start looking. You can't sit there and wait anymore for people to fill out an application or a resume or a CV. You're going to have to go and hunt and mine for them. There's really awesome talent out there, but they're probably already working somewhere else. So you have to go out there and find those people, convince them to come and work for you. And it's probably going to cost you a little bit more money. You probably have to do some customized benefits, probably got to love on them a little bit more, but they are definitely out there. But I'm a huge believer in human behaviors. So I start with that. One of the things I probably talked about also is communication. I really am a big believer that one of the issues that happens in most organizations is somewhere, obviously the founder, the CEO, the president, the top guy or girl, and their executive team probably are all on the same page. But then it starts to get watered down, right? It becomes a copy of a fax by the time you see it. I don't know where it stops. Is it the general manager, the assistant manager, the supervisor, the trainer? When it gets down to the basic floor level, whoever the lowest line level employee, it's sort of like the game of phone, right? Like you don't necessarily know exactly, or the communication stops at some level. Most companies think they're pretty awesome at communication. And to be honest with you, Josh, most suck at communication. And so when I talk about that, I was talking about getting everybody to be singing off the same sheet of music. And it could be paper, video, e-learning, texting, one-on-one conversations. It doesn't matter to me. I think you ought to be doing all of it so that they are crystal clear as to where true north is. They know exactly what direction they're going. And then the last one is probably more on the leadership side that I never talked about when I was coming up as a manager, and it was all about mentorship. And I shared some statistics. I mean, one thing that you and I learn as speakers, we have to be careful when we start throwing stats around because, we make up statistics 84% of the time, which I just made that up. Yeah. So who knows what it actually is. Yeah. But I do know that, when I look at Forbes magazine in 2019, so it's about 5 years, maybe 6 years old now, they had discovered that 70% of every single Fortune 500 company executive, all the CEOs, absolutely swear the only reason they are where they are is because of a mentor. Somebody helped get them there. And all of them had mentorship programs in place. So 75% of Fortune 500 CEOs can't be wrong. And so what I've been really pushing people a lot is you got to become a mentor to someone, because just by teaching and helping somebody else, you in fact will grow. But definitely you got to go the other direction. You need to find a mentor, and they can be inside the company, somebody smarter than you, preferred. It could be outside the company in the industry. It could be a spouse. It could be a good friend. Not just to bounce ideas off of, but somebody who could actually help you grow in your leadership skills, especially if it's your very first job being a leader. So I would say learned behaviors, we got to communicate better and go and be and find a mentor. You do those three things, you can't help but grow your skill set. You're going to get better no matter what.
Hey folks, running an auto repair shop, it's tough. We know that. And between managing repairs, keeping customers happy, and handling front office tasks, there's never enough time in the day. That's where HubShop Solutions comes in. Hub takes the burden off your team by building fast, accurate repair estimates and handling extended warranties, so you can focus on what really matters, running a profitable, efficient shop. With Hub, you free up your team, you boost efficiency, and you increase profits. So sign up now and get free onboarding. Visit hubshopsolutions.com to schedule a demo today. HubShop Solutions. Unlock your shop's full potential. Preach, man. I love that you just shared all of that, especially mentorship. As a leadership coach in the automotive repair industry primarily, this is really what it's all about. It's about helping people really tap into unrecognized potential to achieve what I call limitless results. That's why Limitless Leadership is the name of my company. But you're able to help people identify opportunity areas that they didn't know that they had, and then could achieve something that they didn't know that they could. And so you're helping people really identify blind spots. And if you're watching or listening to this episode, you can watch this episode on YouTube at The Bearded Leader. You can watch it and you might be thinking, Josh, that's great, but I don't have a blind spot. That's a blind spot.
That's a blind spot.
You're thinking that's a blind spot, right?
Yeah.
By the way, you need to watch this episode because you guys know The Bearded Leader. That's I got a beard, but you guys got to see Jim's hair. Like, this is some like fire hair. I mean, like amazing.
My hair is as high as your beard is long. My hair and your beard should be on a road show somewhere.
If we could just combine the two, like, this is a match made in heaven, right?
Too much. It's probably too much. They can't handle it. Yeah. I will say something you were saying though, and I want to make sure that people understand mentorship's not the same thing as apprenticeship. And I think having apprenticeship in your automotive business or any business for that matter, you're really learning the skill set. Like you're really following along. It's a little bit of a shadow. You're jumping in. Perhaps you're always doing it and there's somebody looking over your shoulder. That's all great from a skill set standpoint. What we're talking about with mentorship is all on the soft leadership skills, is dealing with other people. So I would say particularly in your world, you actually need both. But I just want to make sure that people knew, because they might be going, I'm already in. I already crushed the apprenticeship program. Yeah, this is a little bit different than that.
I appreciate you differentiating the two, because you're absolutely right. You know, one of the, here we talk about stats earlier, but one of the stats that I love to share with shop owners is that poor communication is costing their shop 18% of total salaries paid out on an annual basis.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, that's not just in the automotive repair industry. That's in general. Poor communication is costing business owners 18%. So just to put that into perspective, if you're paying, I don't know, $1 million per year at a Hard Rock Cafe to your salary, to your team members across an annual basis, poor communication could actually be creating sunk cost in the amount of $180,000 every single year. And so this is why, as a leadership coach, the number one topic that we discuss quite often is communication or lack thereof and the effects it's having on a shop.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let me ask you this, Jim, because you talked about culture, and I love that you started with culture, because at the heart of every organization is a culture, good, bad, or indifferent. I believe that culture is core values plus behaviors. And we know that beliefs drive behaviors. And sometimes, unfortunately, we are operating under limiting beliefs, but core is Latin for heart. So your core values is like who we are. This is who we are as an organization, plus the behaviors. Can you speak to maybe your own definition of culture, or what it looks like to actually create and cultivate a culture within any organization?
Yeah, you know, I've seen so many definitions of culture, and I have learned I don't really disagree with anybody. Unless you were way crazy left field, something I never heard before. Anytime I'm in a room, if I started asking people what the definition of culture, if I was writing it on flip charts, I'd be like, yeah. You know, almost everything is like that. I love that you're talking about values and behaviors, you know, sort of together. I've always looked at the root cause. I mean, I study human behavior. It's what I've done and all over the world, not just in the US. So for me, I've come to the conclusion that culture really is just a collection of individual people. That's what it is. But if you actually went deeper, it's these people all have individual behaviors, and some of those behaviors are awesome and some are not so much. So they come with baggage. They come with a bunch of awesomeness. But if I have that human working with this human, now it gets to what you're saying. If we have shared values, and the value can't be the old adage of wallet cards and posters and videos. And yeah, you could do all that, and I would, but that's not ultimately what's going to help define the culture. It's going to be the people that are working there. Mm-hmm. So I talk quite a bit that, you know, every time somebody leaves or joins the organization, the culture changes. It takes a hit, especially let's say if I'm only there 3-4 weeks and I leave, or you take me out, or whatever the case is, the culture still took a hit, and probably negatively. And the guy or girl that you're going to replace me with, they're a totally different animal. And if they line up to our values, they're contributing to the culture. If not, they're still adding to the culture just negatively. So, you know, I talk to companies all the time. The ones that really struggle can't fathom the idea of it's always about the people. They're focusing on the product. They're focusing on the environment. They're making their stuff look shiny and propped up in the right color palette and font and whatever. You can do all of that you want to, but if you have the wrong people, what difference does it make? So I use the analogy probably from the stage. I'm not sure if I did it that day. If you ever opened up a business and you took time to hire the right people, let's just say you only hired 10 people. Mm-hmm. If you held on to them for a year, 5 years, 10 years, you'd have the exact culture that you started with. But it doesn't work like that, right? Because people are coming and going. Yeah. And so maybe 5 years down the road, you only have one of the original 10, and whoever it is you brought on board, it's morphed it one way or another. So I am just, maybe all the stuff you hear me talking about are very people oriented because that's my background. I was a training guy. I worked in HR, but I have just now studied. I really get a chance to look underneath the grill of some of the greatest companies in the history of our planet. And I go, the reason they are where they are, it's because of their people. It has nothing to do with the stuff that they sell. So I'm with you on your definition, but I get all the way down to root cause behaviors. That is the main crux. And if you get the right people who have that, you're going to win. You'll pitch whatever, metric it is that you're chasing, and you'll have it plus.
Our people are our greatest assets. If you're in an organization, like the people there are your greatest assets. And this is why I'm a big believer in people before the process. It's people before the profit. It's the connection before the content. It's the name before the job title. Get to know your people, because connection creates engagement, and engagement increases performance. Why is this important? Because 77% of employees are disengaged at work. Why am I bringing this up? Because I was convinced, Jim, that I had the secret ingredient for the automotive repair industry, because now I'm going around the country and I'm sharing with them, hey guys, the opportunity here is engagement. I was convinced I had that secret ingredient. And then Jim Knight comes along, and I noticed he's talking about engagement as much as I am. So first of all, in all seriousness, thank you for that, because I love the fact that more and more people are aware of this opportunity area and they're capturing it. I'll ask you, can you speak to the importance of engagement and what that really looks like in an organization?
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question with a selfish plug for a second. So my first book that I had come out was called Culture That Rocks. It's a hardcover. It's color. That was my one thing, my manifesto, if you will. But I had some people tell me that were very close to me, man, that book is dense. You got a lot of stuff in there. What you should have done is written smaller books and put them together. So it's not actually easy, but I've been deconstructing that book, and I've turned it into 3 smaller, thinner black and white books. One is Leadership That Rocks, which we're talking about here. And that was the title of what we did at ASTA. That came out in 2021. The second one was Service That Rocks, and it's all about customer service. That came out 3 years ago. My third and final book, which I don't have yet, it'll come out January 15th, is Engagement That Rocks. So you wouldn't even know that. But, when I took these 3 big pillars, and again, leadership, service, and engagement, and when I put those 3 together, it'll make up a more relevant version of Culture That Rocks. So we started talking about culture. There are going to be some people that will probably agree or disagree, but they might not struggle, let's say, with their service scores. Maybe their leadership is fantastic, but I can't find and hold on to the right people. They need some engagement. At the very least, they could really be attacking the retention by just loving on their people a little bit more. So if you were to take all 3 of those, like I said, it's going to help you have a much more robust culture. But if you're like, I got this, I only need this, well, now I'll have a book, a talk specifically for them. And I do an Engagement That Rocks keynote session as well. So that's the long answer. But the short is, I think there's a litany of things that you could do. And again, people got to put on their human resources hat for a second and go, what would people want today? And you can't sit there and tell me about pay and benefits, because I go check and check. That is like price of admission stuff. Of course, you're going to pay them a fair wage. Of course, you're going to do what you can to do the best benefits. And by the way, a lot of floor managers, whatever the business, they don't even have any say so in the benefits anyway. That's decided by somebody else. What can I do every day? Well, I am absolutely spending time with them as a human so they can feel fully seen, fully heard when there's actually an issue going on. Could I absolutely put in some sort of flexibility? I'm not talking about working from home. Brick and mortar businesses can't do that, but could I give them flexible schedules? Could I maybe push an agenda that might focus on, can we have a company dog? And if I can't do that, could I at least offer pet insurance? Is there something that we could do where maybe there's an employee meal of some sort? And again, some of the stuff, people are starting to rack up the numbers. I'm not saying do all these. I'm saying, what could you do? What would you allow? But quite honestly, it's some of the things that don't cost a lot of money. You could put in a philanthropic organization that is employee-led, 100% voluntary. Let the staff, let's just say you have 50 people on your staff. Maybe there's only 5 people, but those 5 people are going to be your brand ambassadors, and that thing will grow eventually. But if you give them some autonomy to go and pick some sort of a charitable cause to go and support, maybe they get a t-shirt with our logo on it. Maybe you're going to give them some donuts in the morning, whatever it is, right? They will run through walls to help whoever it is that they're trying to help that's less fortunate. So I go, you do something philanthropic that makes a difference. If you actually have the ability to do some recycled, let's say all your letterhead, your business cards could be on recycled paper, utilizing soy ink. Maybe you've got some green initiatives if that's your thing. Maybe you're taking 5% off the top, like really very progressive companies that really want to give back. I'm not talking about at the bottom EBITDA line. I'm talking about off the top. Whatever your sales are in the year, donate that to some charity that makes sense for your company. That makes a difference to the employees.
Sure.
For me, I think at the end of the day, if I'm somebody who has no direct reports other than the people working for me that day, I'm loving on them all day long. You are awesome. Thank you so much. You totally rock. Can you come back tomorrow? And I used an analogy when we were together, now that I think about it, about treating people as if they're volunteers. You know, you go join any philanthropic group, there's no power, right? I don't have any say so over you. I'm not giving you any money. That's what it is. It's a big fat love fest. Thank you, man. You're so awesome. Can you please come back tomorrow? I'm not saying we should absolutely do that from a financial standpoint, but we should act and behave like that from a leadership standpoint. And I'll just end with this, Josh. I don't understand how this still works, but there are people out there that are still to this day muscling the result. I don't understand how they can manage through threats and punishment and fear and think that they can get a result, because maybe some industries, that's what it's always been like, and some people can get away with it. But if it were me, if I was Gen Z or whatever the next group is, they call them Gen Alpha, I think, I would laugh at you and I'll just go across the street and work for your competitors. It doesn't work anymore. So treating people as if they're volunteers, I think, is a great way to establish engagement. Man, I could talk about this and give you another 10 to 15, but just those 4 or 5, I go, you know, they're all important, but what could you do if you just sat back and thought common sense and love on people a little bit more? They'll stick around with you.
Jim, I love everything you just shared. You know, I really feel like 2020 was kind of the game changer in leadership, and the shift in leadership from kind of more of a positional style of leadership. I was in the Air Force, so as a veteran, I encountered a lot of like positional style leadership, where it's like my superior essentially said, "Hey, do this," and so I would just do it. Couldn't really question them, even if I was trying to seek to understand, because I didn't want to quote unquote challenge them. But that's another topic for another day. But now we're more of a servant leadership style, where we are focusing on people, because we do recognize that people are our greatest assets. And the good news is the people are not tolerating poor leadership. I mean, we know that people leave bad leaders, not bad jobs.
That's
and
right.
The number one reason people leave jobs is not pay. It's not because of compensation. It's because of a lack of recognition and a lack of value. And so recognition is truly the biggest ROI in leadership. So the fact that you're saying, look, if these are my guys, if these are my team, I'm loving on these guys. I'm thanking them. I'm praising them. Public praise goes a long way in terms of engagement. I'm really showing them how and communicating how much I care, because we know that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
We get to show them how much we care. And at the end of the day, as long as your team feels heard and understood and acknowledged and cared for and loved and respected, how could they not come back tomorrow?
Exactly. You know, you would appreciate this too, especially since you mentioned the Air Force. I'm lucky enough that I've had a chance for about 4 or 5 years to go up to Andrews Air Force Base. So I work up there with the Air Force and the Presidential Aircraft Wing, and I do a little bit over at the Pentagon. But one thing that's really cool is and a lot of people probably don't know this, but when there's a colonel in the Air Force and he or she gets promoted to general, they're actually called a brigadier general. And what happens in that transition until there's a position open, they got to go through 2 things. They got to be confirmed by the Senate. And the second thing is they have to go to 2 different places. One of them is Andrews, where they will spend 2 weeks getting a litany of courses. And it could be anything with how we're supporting Space Force or why people do dumb things. And let's talk about, you know, nuclear codes and all that stuff. I get to be the very first session. I'm actually teaching every brigadier general in the Air Force culture that rocks. And I'm talking about the same stuff that you and I are talking about. It's about engagement. It's about, and I'm not trying to make it a kinder, gentler military. It's not, certainly not with the Department of War right now. And I think that things are changing a little bit. But I do think there's, you know, in an all volunteer military, you can't just go out there. I mean, certainly when you're going through basic training, you know, we need to strip people down. I get all that. But at some point, you just can't make it day after day stomping on people. There's a little bit of a different approach. And you said it best. It's a servant leadership approach. And I think what happens is you get people to follow you off a mountain. If I say leader right now, everybody on the podcast is thinking about who it was. Was it their dad? Was it their greatest boss? Was it some awesome teacher? That person's the one who, like you said, saw you, heard you, you trusted them. They were kind to you. They were probably tough on you. And you put all that together and you go, man, I will follow that person to the ends of the earth. And so I'm just lucky enough that I get a chance to do that. And sometimes it doesn't come across in the sessions, again, depending on if I have, 15 minutes or an hour and a half. But I appreciate you saying that, because you said Air Force. I was like,
yeah,
Josh will probably like this one.
And dude, good on you, man. Like, good for you. That's an amazing opportunity. And, something, just because you brought it up, I want to share an acronym that I learned when I was in the Air Force that I don't think I'll ever forget. So as you shared, when someone is promoted to general, they are first a brigadier general, and then the next promotion would be a major general, and then a lieutenant general, and then a general. And so the acronym is Be My Little General. So as I'm kind of climbing the ranks, Be My Little General, BMLG is how I remembered that. But man, good for you. That's an amazing opportunity that you get to do.
It's fun. It's fun, man.
So, Jim, I'll ask you this, because you said, like, for those listening or watching, when they think of leader, they think of someone who was truly the best leader for them in their life. If I were to ask you in your own words to define what does leadership mean to you, or to answer that question, how would you reply to that question? What does leadership mean to you?
Well, I would say, I'm going to use the old adage because I again, like culture, which is very nebulous and esoteric, you can't put your finger on it. There's no leadership P&L, right? You can see it a mile away and when it's not going great, but it's hard to define. But I'll use the old adage. I think leadership is getting people to do the things that you want them to do that they might not have done on their own. Now, in my world, in a lot of ways, I know exactly what I need people to do. It's a predetermined result. I need them to do X, and I'm hoping that I can, maybe I have to play Jedi mind tricks on a couple of them, but I'm hoping that I can impact them, influence them, throw my arm around them enough that I can educate them and teach them to see why it's important to help us get to this point. And some people you might not reach, but those are the ones I'm actively working on, getting people to do the things that you need them to do that they might not have done on their own. If I continuously keep that in the back of my mind, it sort of blankets almost every leadership. There are other great definitions as well, but that's one that tends to work for me. And I teach that to other people.
Love that. You mentioned earlier in the episode the importance of mentorship and finding someone who you're willing to allow to speak truth into your life from a mentor perspective. One of the questions I ask every guest on every episode is, what is the best advice you've ever received from a coach or a mentor? How would you answer that question?
Oh man, that's a great question. I guess it'd be cheating if I used my own, right? I would say my dad. I had a couple really great bosses. I've had a great preacher. I'm a faith-based guy, so that helps in my life as well. But my dad always said, and he wasn't a carpenter or anything, he always just said, you measure twice and you cut once. And I've heard this a couple times before, and I was thinking it was more trade oriented, but it's not. The mindset is, if you plan, if you prepare, if you think about it, when you ultimately are going to make that decision, and when it's time to execute, let's go. Let's don't screw around. Yeah. But I see too many people that are just shooting from the hip. All they are is about let's go, let's execute. They've done no strategy, no forethought, no bouncing off of ideas from a mentor or the team or anything else. So, I would almost say measure 3-4 times. I mean, I'm sort of bouncing. Now, when it's time to get in the game, then I'll make a decision. And if I'm the only one, then I'll make it and make it quick. But I love the idea of being able to sit back and think strategically, which, by the way, I have worked in departments in human resources that reported up through operations. And I've had some that were standalone, from a HR standpoint. I was always below that. I was in training and development. I've reported up through HR. I've reported up through operations. When I report up through operations, I get way more resources, way more money, but they shoot from the hip, and all they want you to do is go training problem and go and fix it. You never get back to thinking about things. When I reported through HR, maybe it took a little bit longer. We certainly didn't have as much money as the people making the money, but we were able to sit back and think strategically. And I always felt like that helped me from a standpoint of, let's make sure we get this right before we go out guns a-blazing.
There's so much power in preparing for anything that you're doing, and I believe in this concept of the way you do anything is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So it's this
that's my quote.
Oh, is it really?
I said no. I'm just kidding. Okay. Wouldn't that be awesome if it was? If you quoted me?
Yeah, that rocks. That's your quote. All right,
keep going. Yes, keep going. I didn't mean to throw you off.
But so it's this concept of the way we do anything is the way we do everything. But there comes a level of preparation, to get there. And here's a quote that actually came from Chris Voss, but you can claim it if you want. But Chris Voss wrote a great book called Never Split the Difference. And he says, when the pressure's on, we don't rise to the occasion. We fall to our highest level of preparation. I'll ask you, Jim, as a fellow keynote speaker, I know how important it is to prepare to jump on stage and deliver something that is hopefully impactful and inspiring for a large group of people who can walk away and feel better than when they came. I'll ask you, as a fellow keynote, like, what does your preparation look like? I mean, you're doing keynotes a lot more than I am. Like, you're doing that's your bread and butter.
It is,
across the country, maybe the world, perhaps. What does it look like for you to prepare for all the keynotes that you're doing?
I'm down to about 35 to 40 engagements. I used to do a lot more, 65 to 70. And it's funny. I've done a couple thousand, 5,000, 6,000, one time 9,000 people in a room, which is pretty fun. And I've done 5 people around a card table, in a break room, in a funeral home, which is crazy, but I would still want to give the same amount of preparation, the same amount of forethought of how can I help these individuals. And I'm going to do it with my own unique sort of rock and roll edutainment, I like to say. So, the amount of work that goes into it is probably a little bit less than when I first started off. I've been doing this now, Josh, for almost 20 years. I was doing a little bit on the side while I was at Hard Rock, but I gave all the money to the clients. So it sort of kept me beyond reproach. But for the last 13 professionally, we'll just use those 13 years. Mm-hmm. It's the same probably amount of time in creating a PowerPoint, in having the pre-event call, which we always do with the client. I want to find out what is working for them, what's a challenge, how could I help them if it fits within my wheelhouse. If you need something to spill out of my mouth, I'm happy to do it as long as I've got credibility to do it. Sure. I will spend a tremendous amount of time. I'll go through their website. I'll look at some of their competitors. I used to, if it was within driving distance, go and actually shop or visit or stay at that hotel or eat at that. I don't have time to do that anymore. But these days there's so much stuff that you can get from a distance. But always, there's going to be at least a couple hours of massaging and customizing a PowerPoint. And there's very specific things that I do with that to make them feel like, they didn't just hire some jackwagon from nowhere and just this guy pulled it off the shelf. Like, I really wanted to go out of my way to make sure I'm one of them. But the phone call, the 1 hour call before, probably 5 to 6 weeks in advance, that thing is like liquid gold to me, because then I can climb underneath the grill. I don't even create or draft anything till we have that discussion. Once I have that discussion, then I start doing a little bit of my homework. So if I had to guess, there's probably now at this point 7-8 hours worth of work that goes into every presentation. Because I do think people probably have this idea that we just are up there just running and gunning and you make money and it's fun and games. Yeah. It's a tremendous amount of work, and you're on the road and you're away from your family, and it's, a lot of times it's quite lonely on the road. Like, you've got all of these other things that people don't think about, but the rewards are so invaluable when you're up there bringing the thunder and you're influencing people in a room. It is my jam. I know it's the number one fear of all humans is actually public speaking. For us, for you and I, we crave it like that. I want that, and I want it every day. It's awesome.
Well, hats off to you for continuing to give it your all, give it your best, and give your audience your best as well. It was very evident to me, being in the audience at the ASTA Expo, that you truly care about what you do. You care about who you do it for, and you're passionate about it. And so I appreciate the concept of visualization, like you talked about, where you get to see where you'll be speaking and be here, be there, but also there's so much power in customization. And I really admire and respect the fact that you are one who is going to take the time and make the time to customize every single keynote that you deliver. If I'm listening or watching this episode and I'm thinking, you know what, I need a keynote for an event coming up, how can our audience get in touch with you?
All roads lead back to my website, which is Knight Speaker. That's my last name, Jim Knight, Knight, speaker.com. When you go there, they're going to see video clips and all the talks and books and whatever it is that you would want. But we start there, and then I love having conversations with people, and we'll figure it out if I'm your guy.
Awesome. I think that you're their guy. Hopefully, if you're listening and you're looking for somebody, consider reaching out to Jim. He is fantastic. That's my own testimonial for Jim Knight. Jim, man, thank you so much for being here on the Limitless Leadership Podcast, my friend.
I had fun, and I really thank you and your audience for just spending a little bit of time with us. So thank you, brother. Rock on.
Thank you. Rock on yourself, my friend. And thank you and rock on. Thank you for being here once again on Limitless Leadership Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. As you know, every episode we look to tap into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results. So have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.